On this episode of Locked On Canadiens, Montreal may never win again.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to episode 1180 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, including here on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @Maybe It's Ian. I'm not joined this week by the active stick, also known as Laura Saba. She is out for the week. Everything's fine. She's good. She's taking a week. So you're riding solo with me for a little bit. We got a lot to talk about in this one. Obviously, the Canadiens drop another one. Their sixth straight loss in Toronto on Saturday night. We have the weekly recap to talk about last week and the three losses that happened, and the weekly forecast where we will look at probably the next three losses that will happen. But we start as we should on Saturday in Toronto. Montreal drops that game by a score of 4-1, and it was set up in a way where the Canadiens should have been able to make more of it. It was the second half of a back-to-back for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, there was no travel involved, but it was still a back-to-back for Toronto, something they have historically struggled with. They didn't have Austin Matthews. They lost Max Pacioretty early to what looked like a hamstring injury. Everything was pointing towards this being a good night for the Canadiens. Not necessarily a win, but at least an effort similar to what we saw against New Jersey this past week. Instead, we got two shots in the first period. The ninth time this year giving up the first goal, which is a big deal because the Canadiens have not yet won a game in which they've trailed at any point. So the first goal against pretty much means the game is effectively over the way the Canadiens are currently playing. Power play one gives up a shorty and another bad decision by Mike Matheson at the blue line. He's made a couple of those over the last few games. Gallagher is the only forward scoring consistently in the year 2024. And for 3 hours on Saturday, it never felt like the Canadiens had a shot in that game. They never had a chance. You're going to look at Money Puck, and you're going to look at the deserve to win-o-meter, and you're going to see, well, Montreal had a 45% chance on the deserve to win-o-meter. Or you'll go to Natural Stat Trick, and you'll see they had 2/3 of the shot attempts, 68.9% of the scoring chances, 60% of the high danger chances, 68.8% of the expected goals for. And I look at all that, and on this show, I am kind of the stats guy. I know Laura likes to laugh at me for all the numbers that I pull into the show. She's probably laughing now that one, that I mentioned that, and two, that I led into it with 4 stats in rapid fire. But none of those numbers matter to me because that stat line does not match what we saw on the ice. It matches what happened kind of in the third period. But they had 2 shots on net in the first period. The Leafs scored in the first. The game was effectively over. And should it be over for an NHL team at 1-0 midway through the first period or late in the first period? No, but it is for this team. 15 games in, the Canadiens have the first goal in 6 games. They've won 4 of those. They lost 2, the one in Boston and the one against Los Angeles. The remaining 9 games are all losses. So I'm kind of at a loss for words when it comes to the fact that this team gets down and it's over. It's over instantly. And there have been times where they have gotten down and they've come back, sometimes to tie the game, sometimes to take the lead. The Washington game, they took the lead in that one. But they've wasted so much energy and a lot of their shooting luck just to get back into games that then they, you watch it and you realize that they don't have the horses to then take them over that next hump of finishing a hockey game. So, all of the good numbers the Canadiens put up were in garbage time. And Usually garbage time, it's a relatively widespread sports term. I know of a lot of it from fantasy football, where garbage time is a game isn't a blowout, but your guy scores a touchdown. It's none of the points matter in the game, but they matter for different reasons for different people. For Montreal, garbage time started with 45 minutes left in this hockey game. And until proven otherwise, garbage time starts the moment they trail in a hockey game. They cannot come back. They started the third period down 4-1. Third period was their best period, and it should have been. The Leafs were not pressing because they're up 4-1. They're on the second half of a back-to-back. And Montreal's down 3. What do they have to lose? They might as well start, taking some chances offensively. I said, you'll see it on the side of the screen if you're on YouTube. It's a listless effort, but I don't know that necessarily it's not that I don't think it's that they're not trying. I think it's just a team lacking talent and any kind of identity. The forecheck looked great. So why did they keep trying the home run stretch pass where a defenseman had all the time in the world? The Leafs were not pressuring, and the defenseman was trying to hit a forward with, a tape to tape pass where I think they tried it like 6 or 7 times and it was icing every single time. They're not a fast team. They're not particularly skilled right now. They're not a tough team up and down the lineup. Right now, they have a bunch of players and no cohesive idea of what they are as a hockey team. And all of this results in a team that is 4-9-2. And when the Canadiens got up on Sunday morning, they were tied for last in the NHL with San Jose. Yes, Patty Laine has not played a game yet for the Montreal Canadiens, but the core pieces have not taken the step forward we had hoped for. Caulfield took a big step, to start this season. He was shooting really well. It looked like the old Caulfield was back and better than ever. He's kind of fallen back in the last few games. Nick Suzuki started poorly, had a stretch where he had a couple, maybe 3-4 good games in a row, and he's back to being, what he is right now. Kirby Dach, we know there's a long on-ramp there. I'm going to get into more of them in the weekly recap segment, so I don't want to overburden, this point. But something hit me in the middle of Saturday night's game where I think I realized this is my least favorite version of the Hughes-Gorton Canadiens. I don't know what this team is. They told us they wanted to be in the mix. They are firmly not. They are tied for last place with a team who is decidedly not in the mix in San Jose. So I don't know where they go from here. As you're listening to this on Monday, Montreal plays at 12:30. We'll get into that in our weekly forecast segment. But it's a quick turnaround. And then there's going to be a couple days off. And that seemed to do them well last time when they got crushed by the Rangers and then they had a few days off. They're going to need to recuperate in that time. They're going to need to figure out what is going on and how they can fix it. Because there's not really a part of their game that collectively looks strong. If you're looking for positives, I kind of thought that the Xhekaj-Struble pairing was fun. Especially down the stretch when the game didn't really matter all that much. They were just taking turns, taking shots from the blue line, which was very fun to watch. We don't see big slap shots very often anymore, so it was fun to see that. But I mean, they don't have a line that's working right now, and it shows in the way that they prepare for these games, the way that how fragile they are mentally. They give up one goal and it's over. I don't know how they pull themselves out of this because there's no reinforcements coming right now. Yes, Laine's coming. He's not going to overhaul the Canadiens overnight. So they need to figure out a way to get the most out of this lineup, and that's going to be on Marty. He needs to figure that out, but the execution will always be on the players, and the execution right now just isn't good enough, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the weekly recap coming up, where I'm going to try to figure out where on earth the offense went. And we're going to get to the bottom of that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. It's so fun and simple to use, you'll really enjoy playing. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get a $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. This episode is also brought to you by Gametime. I love being in the middle of the action, whether that's taking in a concert or enjoying a night at the ballpark. It's just more fun being there. The place where you can go to get to the events that you want to see is Gametime. We're big fans of Gametime here, thanks to their all-in pricing. This is a setting in the app that you can toggle on so that you know exactly how much you'll be paying to get in. No hidden fees. Plus, with their seat views, you know what kind of action you'll be able to see. And with their lowest price guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal for your tickets. It's for all those reasons that I went to Gametime to secure tickets to the Habs game against the Islanders last month. I got some great seats at an even better price, and even though the Canadiens didn't win, I had a great night out with some friends. Right now, Gametime is having an exclusive zone deal for the NHL Winter Classic event at Wrigley Field. Go to the Gametime app to purchase tickets to get 10% off bleacher seating and 20 to 25% off of home plate area seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, we are back. We're going to hit our weekly recap here. Kind of a stinker to recap. I don't know if you guys remember this last week, but it wasn't particularly good. Montreal goes 0-2-1. They got 1 out of a total possible 6 points. They were outscored 11-6 by Calgary, New Jersey, and Toronto. Power play goes 2 for 7, 28.6%, which on its face doesn't seem that bad, but it is only a +1 because the Toronto Maple Leafs scored a shorthanded goal on Saturday night. The PK goes 6 for 8 for 75%, but it's only a -1 because Yoel Armia scored a shorthanded goal against Calgary. So weird week for special teams. I don't think the PK is operating as well as it did earlier on this season. The William Nylander goal on Saturday was kind of pathetic to watch them just allow William Nylander to get the blue line and then the slot all on his own without having to really do much to work for that area. 2 positives from the week. Brendan Gallagher has goals in 3 straight. I said it earlier in the season on this podcast when Gallagher had a 2-goal game, but I think it also applies when he scores at all. Losing a game where Brendan Gallagher scores a goal in the year 2024 or 2025 is kind of unacceptable to me because that should be secondary offense, and instead it's, your only offense right now. Same thing with Newhook. Alex Newhook had 2 goals against the New Jersey Devils, and that would be great if the rest of the lineup was clicking. It is not. So with that said, the focus for me in this recap is the core on offense. And that's Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Juraj Slafkovsky, and Kirby Dach. Between the 4 of them, they played 12 total games this week, and they had zeros across the board. Not a goal, not a point, nothing. We can bemoan the defense all we want, which a lot of people are very quick to do nowadays. But most of those games were within striking distance. The Leafs one got out of hand, I'll give you that. But the Devils game and the Calgary Flames game, those were within striking distance, and the team's top 4 forwards on the top 2 lines could not find a way to score. If we have 2 goals just all week, just 2 goals from those top 4 players in total, we could be talking about a different week. A goal against Calgary could be the winner. That could be another point. A goal against New Jersey could have at least forced overtime. So this is sort of where you're looking back at the season when the Canadiens ultimately miss the playoffs, like they will. And even if they get hot at some point, we're not totally we shouldn't be totally surprised when we look back and we see these stretches where their best players were not being their best players. There was only 3 goal scorers this week. Brendan Gallagher had 3. Newhook had 2. Armia had 1. That should be secondary scoring. Like I said, that should not be the only scoring that you get out of a given week by the Montreal Canadiens. And because of that, it's been over 2 weeks since they last won. Their last game was Sunday against the Philadelphia Flyers. Before that, they won the night before against St. Louis. And before that St. Louis game, it had been 2 weeks since their previous win. So they're currently going 2 weeks in between wins right now, essentially, which is just unacceptable for a team that thought they were going to be better than they were last year. Because right now, it looks like they might be worse than last year. I'm not worried about Suzuki. He's making some poor decisions with the puck right now, but I know that the player has a large enough body of work that I'm not worried about where he could potentially make up points. I'm not worried about Caulfield. Goal scoring is always streaky in the NHL. When he comes back, he's going to score in bunches. I'm not worried about that. I'm a tiny bit worried about Slafkovsky, and not because of his play, really, but because before that game against the Devils, the TSN cameras caught him with a knee brace on his left knee. I'm a little worried that he's playing through something, and I just hope that that does not become a larger issue. His knee, I don't remember if it was his left knee or not, but his knee is what took him out of the first season of his career. So not great to be seeing that. But Kirby Dach is concerning to me now. We knew he was the tagline with him has been long on ramp. We knew it was going to take him some time to get going. 15 games is about, fine, where I would sort of expect him to start playing at a better pace than he has been. And I don't even know that his play is why I'm concerned. Why isn't he playing center? He starts every game now on the first line right wing ahead of Slafkovsky. And when there are line shuffles, he doesn't leave that right wing spot. They move Slafkovsky up to the top line in that game against Toronto, and they moved Caulfield down to the second line. It can't be in the name of a balanced lineup, like a lot of people are saying, and I think Marty has even said as much, because that would involve, to me, a balanced lineup to me would involve having 2 lines with top 6 centers. And when you have both of your top 6 centers on the top line, Jake Evans is great. He is not a second line center. So I don't know that has helped in any meaningful way. It hasn't made the top line any more potent. They don't have a top line right now. It has not played well. And it wasn't that long ago where some people were confident saying that Dach was going to be the first line center on this team ahead of Nick Suzuki. And at this point, I don't even know that I'm confident that the Canadiens see Kirby Dach as a center. Because if they did, why is he playing the wing right now? Is it so important to them to have him on the top line that it's sort of, going over their thoughts of him being the second line center on this hockey team? Because what are they getting out of him as a winger? That line hasn't scored in 3 games. You might as well, even if he's not playing well at center, if your thoughts are that he should be a center on this hockey team, or that the rebuild kind of hinges around him being the second line center behind Nick Suzuki, what are we doing? It doesn't make any sense to continue to play him on the wing when, 1, it's not helping them now, and 2, it's not helping them in the future. It is a 0-win game for the Montreal Canadiens. So consider me moderately concerned about Kirby Dach. One last thing I want to mention before we head off to our next segment. I was tracking turnovers this week, as Laura was calling Boisvetrix, I believe is what it was. I didn't invent the turnover, so we're going to just leave that where it is. Calgary, they had 21 turnovers, third straight game with at least 20. And then New Jersey, they had 11, and Toronto, they had 12. So they're improving there, but there's still room to clean it up. There's too many hope plays, too many blind passes, too many passes through sticks and legs that they're hoping get to the other side, too many stretch passes that go for icing. There's room for them to clean this up. And we're going to see if they clean it up. We've got the Montreal Canadiens have 3 games on the schedule for this upcoming week, and we're going to break them all down in our weekly recap in just a moment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a moment and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we are back into our final segment of the day. This is our weekly forecast. We're going to set up the week. There's 3 games this week, back half of a 4-game road trip at Buffalo and at Minnesota, and then back home to face the Columbus Blue Jackets. We start in Buffalo. As you're listening to this, it's probably in a few hours. For the Buffalo Sabres are hosting that game in the States. November 11th is a holiday, so that's why you'll see a lot of American teams playing. I know it's obviously Remembrance Day in Canada, but we get Veterans Day in the States as a holiday in most places. Buffalo comes into the game 7-1 with 15 points, 5th in the Atlantic, 16th in the NHL, winners of 3 straight. I look at the Buffalo Sabres standings and where they are, and I think they're disappointed in where they are. But if the Canadiens had the Buffalo Sabres record, we'd be stoked. If they had just won 3 straight, we'd be so happy right now. Last season, Montreal went 2-0 against Buffalo, a 3-1 win, a 3-2 shootout win, a 6-1 loss, and a 3-2 loss. Over the season series, Jaden Struble, I believe, scored his first NHL goal against Buffalo, and he added another one. I don't know what it is with him and the Buffalo Sabres, but he likes filling their net. Currently, the Sabres are about as mid as their record shows. Both their special teams are below average. They are 6 goals over the league average for goals scored, and they are exactly at the league average in goals against. But this isn't for lack of talent. The players that you should be watching for in this game, Tage Thompson, it's hard to miss him because he's massive, and he's back. He had a down season last year, 10 goals, 7 assists in 17 games for Buffalo this year. He's off to a terrific start. JJ Peterka, also a point per game, 13 points in 13 games. Rasmus Dahlin on the back end, 11 points in 15 games. Owen Power, 10 points in 15 games. The Sabres have invested a lot of their draft capital on defense, and it shows. Not only draft capital, but trading Casey Middlestat for Bo Byram, who's also a very important part of that team's blue line. I think the Buffalo Sabres are a couple of players away from being a real problem in the Eastern Conference and in the playoff picture as a whole, because you just look at that defense, and you know they're going to be a pain to play against one day. It's just not the case on a nightly basis yet. Goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is their starter. I don't know that he will start on Monday. We'll figure that out. The starters as of this recording have not been determined yet, at least for Buffalo. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is 6-4-1 with a .910 save percentage and a .264 goals against average. Caden Primo getting the start for Montreal after Sam Montembeault starts 4 straight games. He's 1-0 against Buffalo in his career, and the game that he won was he made 46 saves on 48 shots. Don't know what it is about the Sabres, but let's see if that continues. If he has to make 48 saves, though, the Canadiens are probably in trouble. The key to this game for me, and the key that I'm going to harp on, I think, for the rest of the year because of how critical it is for this hockey team, protect the puck. You cannot turn the puck over and expect to be successful. The Canadiens do not have the talent to be able to waste opportunities to score. They need to be able to protect the puck, and make sure they're actually able to play with it. And find something that works offensively. The bar is on the floor right now for these keys for this game against Buffalo. Montreal needs to desperately find something that works. I don't know if we're going to see the lines in the blender on Monday afternoon. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out, but they need to figure out ways to get their top players going. Speaking of their top players going, the Minnesota Wild, they're 10-2-2 for 22 points, second in the Central, third in the NHL. Central's a gauntlet with just the top two teams. I mean, the Wild should be much higher in the end. They could have a claim to first overall, but the Winnipeg Jets are 14-1 to start the season. Last season, Montreal went 0-1-1 versus Minnesota, a 5-2 loss and a 4-3 overtime loss. David Savard had 3 points in 2 games played against the Wild last year. I would be doubtful he repeats that, but it was funny to point out. The Wild Stars look fantastic. And they cooked Montreal last year. Boldy, Rossi, Faber, and Kaprizov all scored against Montreal last year. In that 5-2 loss at home, the Wild had 2 shorthanded goals on the same power play. That was the first game after the Kirby Dach injury became, serious. He was injured the game before against Chicago, and that team was just emotionally shot before that game even started. Kirill Kaprizov is the guy that you need to be worried about. In 14 games, he has 27 points, 18 goals. By the time Montreal actually plays them, he will have more, which is horrifying to think about. They have 2 goalies over 900. I would bet we get Marc-Andre Fleury because there's really no reason for them to play their starter in that game, considering where the Canadiens are currently. Keys to that one, again, the bar is on the floor. Protect the puck and keep it close. Don't get embarrassed. If you keep it close, maybe a bounce or 2 goes your way and you steal a point. Man, I'm really upset that that's the stage we're at in this season. All right, last game of the week. Columbus on Saturday. Columbus is 5-6-2 for 12 points. They're 7th in the Metro, 26th in the NHL. Montreal was 3-0-0 against Columbus last year, a 4-3 overtime win, a 4-2 win, and a 3-0 win. There was a 3-point game from Nick Suzuki in there. Caden Primo had a 41 save shutout. This might be Caden Primo week, come to think of it. Maybe give Montembeault some nights off and let's see if Primo can repeat some of these performances. Kirill Marchenko is a point per game player for Columbus, 13-13. Sean Monahan returns to the Bell Center. He's got 11 points in 13 games. I'm really happy to see him succeed out in Columbus, especially given everything that's gone on there. Monahan is a really easy guy to root for. I will continue to cheer for that player until he's out of this league, quite honestly. Zach Werenski is back. He was hurt last year, 9 points in 13 games played. In net, they have Daniil Tarasov and Elvis Merzlikins, and neither of them are particularly good. Both are sub-900 goalies. The keys to this one, again, protect the puck. Even against a team like Columbus, where you should be able to beat them handedly, until you prove that you can beat teams handedly, you have to take care of the puck. And I have labeled this the first must-win game of the season for the Montreal Canadiens. If you want to prove that you don't belong in the bottom of the standings with teams like Columbus, you cannot lose to teams like Columbus. If you want to prove that you're better than this, be better than this. And until that happens, we're just going to, be talking about the same old Canadiens for the rest of the season, which I hope we don't have to do, but this is the season that they've handed us. All right, we're running out of time here on this episode of Locked On Canadiens, but we have some trivia to get into. I'll go over last episode's question and then hit you with a new one. To remind you, last episode's question, in the 1998-99 season, former Hab and Leaf Thomas Carberlet finished 15th in caller voting. Who won the caller that year? The answer is Chris Drury with the Colorado Avalanche. Little League World Series champion Chris Drury also won the Calder Trophy that year. The question for today's episode, the first trade between the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens that involved 2 players swapping teams, no cash considerations or future considerations or draft picks, was on March 10th, 1992. Who were the players involved in that trade? It was a 1-for-1 deal. So who were the first 2 players that were traded for one another between the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens? If you have the answer, put it down in the comments. We will pin whoever gets it first and send in your questions if you've got them. We're compiling all of them. We'll probably start putting them out into episodes soon. But that's going to do it for us on this episode of Locked On. Thanks so much for tuning in and making us your first listen or your second listen Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey and Locked On Canadiens on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are making the jump over to Bluesky. We are abandoning the previous site. You can follow the show at Locked On Canadiens. You can follow me at Maybe It's Ian. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. We're also going to be on TikTok. You'll see our first one go up on Monday or Sunday night. Locked On Canadiens there as well. So thanks so much for listening. I will be back tomorrow.